In Texas, May heat doesn't just press down from above, it rises from below, clinging to skin, soaking into bone. But nothing in the Houston bayous prepared Jack Simmons for the smell that morning. Rot, death, something too foul for fish and too heavy for words. He cut the engine, squinted into the sun, and drifted closer to the rust-streaked barge anchored near the marsh. No name, just a faded number. TX 5794. A whisper of flies hovered above the open cargo hatch. Jack's gut clenched. He knew that smell. 30 years on the river had taught him to trust it. What he didn't know was that he was about to crack open the first thread of the most disturbing murder case Harris County had seen in a decade. It was 7:48 a.m. when the sheriff's department got the call. Jack Simmons, local fisherman and lifelong Trinity River native, reported a suspicious stench and something that sure as hell ain't cargo aboard an unmanned sand barge drifting near Red Creek Bend. By 8:30 a.m., Sheriff Dana Matthews was on site, boots crunching the dried grass, face set like stone. The sun bore down mercilessly on the marshland, turning the air thick and glistening. Buzzards circled overhead. The barge TX 5794 sat squat and silent, its hull rust-patched, cargo hold yawning open like a wound. Inside, layers of river sand shifted unnaturally. Flies swarmed a central depression in the grit. "You're going to want gloves," one deputy muttered, already reaching for his mask. Two forensic techs descended into the hold. Shovels pierced the surface, revealing something that made the youngest tech gag and stumble back. It wasn't just the body, it was how it was left. A woman, mid to late 50s, hands bound behind her back with plastic cable ties, legs drawn together at the ankles, mouth stuffed with fabric, a floral print scarf, already soaked through with fluids. Sand had filled her ears, her nose, as if the killer had tried to bury her alive or silence her even in death. The skin was bloated, darkened in patches. Death had come quickly, but not kindly. By 9:15 a.m., the site was crawling with personnel. Crime scene tape fluttered in the wind. Reporters began to gather along the access road, their vans kicking up clouds of dust. "This is no accident," Matthews muttered, squinting down into the pit. "No one does this unless they want her gone and forgotten." The news hit local media by noon. Body of unidentified woman found in sand barge near Houston. Possible homicide. Social media spun into overdrive. Reddit threads speculated cartel dumping grounds. Facebook locals blamed sex trafficking. One viral post suggested a serial killer using barges to hide victims across the Gulf Coast. By evening, national headlines picked it up. Mystery body found in Texas sand barge. Who is she? But as speculation frothed, investigators focused on the facts. The barge was registered to a dredging subcontractor based out of Galveston, but the company claimed it had been idle for 2 days, scheduled for inspection and fuel restocking. "No one should have been on that barge," said a company rep, "and it sure as hell shouldn't have been floating 10 miles off course." That raised a new problem. How had the vessel moved? And more importantly, how had a dead woman ended up inside? The river current wasn't strong enough to push it that far alone. Someone had guided it, then abandoned it. That meant this wasn't a body dumped in panic. It was placed. Deliberate. Chosen. Sheriff Matthews stood in the makeshift command tent, arms crossed over her chest, as the forensics team laid out early findings. "No ID on the body yet," said tech analyst Dorian Phelps. "We lifted partial prints from the wrists, likely her own. Maybe we'll get a match once we run it through APHIS." "What about personal effects?" Matthews asked. "None. No purse, no wallet, no phone, no jewelry, except a ring plain gold band, left ring finger. Married maybe, or had been. Time of death?" she pressed. 24 to 36 hours ago, Phelps replied. "Decomposition suggests it didn't happen on the barge. She was killed elsewhere, transported here, then buried." "Causa?" "Ligature strangulation, bruising on the neck, clear compression marks." Matthews cursed under her breath. The kind of clean kill that meant experience or rage. Back at the barge, investigators turned their attention to surrounding areas. No tire tracks near the shore, no surveillance footage from river crossings. The barge's GPS was disabled. It was a ghost drifting until Jack Simmons caught its scent. By nightfall, one thing was clear. This wasn't just murder. It was message wrapped in sand. And someone had gone to great lengths to make sure the woman stayed silent. Matthews returned to her cruiser long after sundown, sweat dried to salt on her collar. She opened her case log and wrote one sentence under the header. Female, 52nd, bound and buried aboard barge TX, 5794. Found by civilian. No ID. Murder? Confirmed. She hesitated, then added, whoever did this knew her, hated her, or feared what she knew. Outside, the marsh crickets chirped and the wind howled across the open river. The autopsy report came back just after 7 a.m. the following day. Cause of death: asphyxiation via ligature strangulation. Time of death narrowed down. Late evening, 2 nights prior. No defensive wounds, no signs of sexual assault. The killer had been fast, efficient, and quiet. But what got everyone's attention wasn't in the tissue samples. It was a single fingerprint match. Helen Ruth Whitmore. The name hit Sheriff Dana Matthews like a truck. You sure about that? She asked the forensic analyst again. Positive. Match came through the AFIS database overnight. We double-checked. Dental records confirm it. Helen Whitmore. The Helen Whitmore, owner of Whitmore RX, the largest family-run pharmaceutical chain in Harris County. Regular donor to local hospitals. Keynote speaker at the annual Medical Ethics Conference. A face on billboards. A household name. A woman no one had seen in public for 2 days, but no one had thought to ask why. Matthews exhaled through her teeth. Jesus. By 10 a.m., Alex Whitmore was standing under the harsh fluorescence of the county morgue. Hands trembling, lips pressed tight. The ring on his finger glinted as he reached for the identification form. Are you ready? The coroner asked softly. He nodded once. The sheet came back. Alex didn't speak. Didn't scream. He just folded, like someone unplugged his spine. One knee hit the floor, then the other. I told her to stop going alone, he said eventually. I told her to let the driver take her, but she said she needed air, said it cleared her head. Matthews helped him back to his feet. Mr. Whitmore, I'm sorry, but we'll need your help. Anything unusual these past few days? Alex looked lost for a moment, then shook his head. She was private, but lately, something changed. She kept taking long drives at night, locked her phone, smiled less. She wouldn't tell me why. What about threats? Business rivals? No one hated her. They respected her. Matthews didn't respond. Respect had nothing to do with murder. Later that afternoon, detectives searched Helen's home, an immaculate Spanish-style estate nestled behind wrought iron gates in River Oaks. Everything looked untouched. Too untouched. Helen's room was meticulous. Jewelry in velvet boxes. Her planner still open on the desk. The last entry scribbled in her precise cursive. Meet 7:15, private, don't forget flash drive. The flash drive was nowhere to be found. Her phone was missing too. Matthews scanned the kitchen calendar. Wednesday night's dinner had been scratched out with red ink. Beneath it, someone had written, Emily, remind me later. Emily Carter, wife of Alex Whitmore. Married just 3 months ago in a garden ceremony that had graced every lifestyle blog in Texas. 22, a recent graduate from the University of Austin. Sweet smile. Soft voice. The media called her the modern Southern belle. Matthews pulled out her notebook. Get me everything we have on Emily Whitmore, all of it. By dusk, Matthews sat in her cruiser staring at Helen's wedding photo on her tablet. The woman in the image beamed beside her late husband, arms around a young Alex, a different kind of glow in her eyes. What changed? What was she so afraid of that she'd erase her own calendar, hide her tech, and arrange a secret meeting? And why would a woman so calculated, so careful, end up murdered, alone, buried in sand? The answers weren't in the autopsy. They were in what Helen had known, what she had discovered, and who she was trying to protect. Someone had silenced her. Deliberately. brutally. And the closer Matthews got to the people who claimed to love Helen Whitmore, the more uneasy she became. Because behind every perfect family photo, there's a shadow. And this one had just started to move. Sheriff Dana Matthews didn't trust perfection, especially not the kind wrapped in silk smiles and pastel sundresses. By Thursday morning, her team had compiled a full background on Emily Carter Whitmore. No criminal record, no history of mental illness, no financial debts, a squeaky clean credit score, and glowing references from her former professors. Too glowing. "She's clean," said Detective Javier Ruiz, tossing the file on Matthews' desk. "Like Disney princess clean." Matthews didn't look up. "No one's that clean." She stared at the engagement photo on her tablet, Emily in soft lighting, leaning into Alex's shoulder, eyes sparkling like moonlight. She'd seen those eyes before. Calculated. Cold behind the shimmer. "She was the last person Helen wrote a note about," Matthews murmured, "and she's missing from every entry since Monday." That afternoon, they executed a warrant on the Whitmore estate. Emily greeted them at the door, wearing a pale blue robe and a face full of confusion. "Oh, God. Is this about Mom?" she whispered, tears welling fast. "Alex told me they confirmed it. I can't believe she's gone." Matthews studied her reaction too smooth. Her voice cracked at all the right places. Her hands trembled in a rehearsed rhythm. But grief wasn't supposed to be graceful. "We're here for her laptop," Matthews said. Emily blinked. "Laptop? You think she—" She stopped herself. "Right, of course. It's in her upstairs study." The team swept the house quickly. Helen's laptop was found tucked inside a drawer, powered off, encrypted. But the local IT forensic expert said 5 words Matthews had been dying to hear. She used iCloud autosync. 6 hours later, Matthews sat alone in the darkened operations room, watching recovered video files stream from Helen's cloud account. The footage was grainy, taken through a slightly cracked office door. In the first clip, Emily sat at Helen's desk, rifling through drawers. She pulled out a flash drive, plugged it into the laptop, and began copying files. Her posture was casual, even entitled. In the next clip, things escalated. Emily wasn't alone. A man entered the room, tall, scruffy, hoodie half-zipped. Jason Miller. A name Matthews hadn't heard in years. Jason had been arrested twice in the last 5 years, once for opioid possession, once for assaulting a pharmacist who refused to fill a fake prescription. That pharmacist? Helen Whitmore. In the footage, Jason moved behind Emily, slipped his hands around her waist, kissed her neck. She didn't flinch. She smiled. The timestamp was 2 weeks before the murder. Another clip, dated 3 nights before Helen's death, showed Helen herself peering through the cracked door, phone in hand, recording in silence as Emily and Jason made out on the couch. There was no confrontation, no shouting, just a silent, trembling woman with a phone documenting betrayal. Helen knew, and someone knew she knew. Matthews turned to Ruiz, who just entered with coffee and a sick expression. "She was planning to expose them," he said, sliding a printed email across the table. It was a message Helen had drafted, never sent to her attorney. Subject: urgent. Need to discuss family trust modification. I have reason to believe Emily Carter Whitmore has engaged in criminal conduct and financial manipulation. We need to talk before I make anything public. She was about to cut Emily out of the inheritance, Ruiz said grimly. Matthews leaned back in her chair. That's motive with teeth. Still not enough for a warrant. She could say she was just snooping. Jason could have broken in. It's circumstantial. Matthews nodded slowly. Then we make it less circumstantial. Later that evening, they paid another visit to Emily. She was curled on the couch with Alex, wrapped in a cream-knit blanket, tea in hand. She stood when Matthews entered, trying to blink back surprise. Sheriff. Wah. Wasn't expecting you. I'm not here long, Matthews said. Just wanted to ask if you've remembered anything else. About Helen. Where she might have gone. Anyone she was meeting. Emily shook her head slowly. Number I wish I could help. She was my second mother. Alex glanced between them, frowning. Is something wrong? No, Emily said quickly, smiling. It's just questions. I understand. Matthews smiled back. Of course, you're very cooperative. But her eyes were already on Emily's phone, resting on the coffee table. Same case as Helen's old one. Same model. A flash of red caught her eye, barely visible between the case and the screen. A worn flower pattern, Helen's floral scarf. It had been used to gag her corpse. Matthews narrowed her gaze. Someone had kept a trophy. Back in the car, Ruiz muttered, "She's either the world's most fragile widow or one hell of an actress." "She's both," Matthews replied, "and we're running out of time before she cleans her tracks." "What now?" Matthews turned to him, voice like steel. "We bait the fox. If she thinks we found the phone, she'll panic. And people make mistakes when they panic." Across town, Emily sat alone in Helen's study, door locked, lights off. She opened the bottom drawer of the desk, pulled out a flash drive wrapped in tissue, and whispered to herself, "They don't know, they can't." But even she didn't look sure anymore. Jason Miller had a pattern. Like most small-time felons, he was addicted to comfort. Same liquor store, same motel chain, same crack house deep in Fifth Ward. He liked places where no one asked questions, and everyone owed someone. By Friday night, his face was plastered across every screen in the Harris County Task Force. Baggy hoodie, 6'2" scar on his left cheek. Matthews told the tactical unit during the morning briefing, "If you find him, approach with caution. Miller's been known to carry, and he's stupid enough to use it." The break came at 2:11 a.m. A tip from an anonymous caller led officers to a condemned row house on East Scott Street, just blocks from a needle exchange. Inside, Miller was passed out in a nest of garbage and pill bottles, shirtless and twitching, surrounded by the echoes of bad decisions. He woke to the barrel of a Sig Sauer and the weight of 3 officers pinning him to the moldy floor. "I didn't kill nobody," he screamed. "It wasn't me. I swear to God, Emily made me do it." Matthews, watching from the hallway, felt the temperature in her spine drop. "Gotcha." At precinct headquarters, Miller unraveled like a frayed rope. He was high, dehydrated, and angry. But most importantly, he was scared. "She planned the whole thing," he sobbed, slumped over the interrogation table, hands cuffed to the chair. "Said Helen was going to ruin everything. Said she'd take the money, the house, Alex. She couldn't let that happen." "You helped her murder a woman and dump the body in a barge," Ruiz said coldly. "I didn't kill her. Emily did. I was just supposed to drive the barge and wait. She came out shaking, covered in sand, said it was done, said we had to disappear for a while until it all blew over." "Why didn't you?" Jason let out a bitter laugh. "She ghosted me. After all that, she promised we'd be rich, run off together. But the next day she blocked my number and posted a goddamn picture kissing Alex in the garden." Matthews exchanged a glance with Ruiz. A classic predator move. Manipulate, discard, deny. "She kept the flash drive?" Matthews asked. Jason nodded, eyes down. "She said it was leverage. In case you ever open your mouth," she told me. "Where did she hide it?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Her purse, the pink one, bottom zipper. It wasn't in the house during the last search. She had it on her." At 8:45 a.m., Matthews played her final hand. A carefully scripted message was delivered to Emily's phone. "We've recovered the victim's iPhone, GPS and all. Need your help confirming a few files." 10 minutes later, Emily bolted. A traffic cam caught her car heading west on the I-10, past her usual gym, beyond her hairdresser. Her destination, the Oak Ridge Inn, a 2-star motel near the edge of town, far enough from scrutiny, but close enough for a quick exit. They followed without lights. By the time she reached the room and slammed the door shut, Matthews and Ruiz were already outside, flanking both sides. They knocked once. No response. Then came the sound of drawers flinging open, frantic footsteps, the click of a zipper. Matthews signaled. Officers moved. The door burst open. Emily stood frozen in front of the bathroom mirror, holding the pink purse with both hands, lipstick smeared across her wrist like blood. Her eyes locked onto Matthews. Wide, cornered, animal. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "Put the bag down, Emily." Her hands trembled. The flash drive was already halfway out of the lining. "I didn't mean for it to happen this way," she said. "She was going to destroy everything. My marriage, my life. I earned this." "By killing her?" Ruiz snapped. "Number by surviving her." You think she was a saint? She was a tyrant. She hated me the second I said I do. You killed her, Matthew said, stepping closer, and now you're done running. Emily laughed a short, sharp exhale. So this is it, huh? One mistake, and everyone forgets the rest. No, Matthew said. We remember everything. That's why you're going to prison. Emily didn't resist when they cuffed her. She just whispered something under her breath as they led her away. She wasn't as innocent as you think. At headquarters, the pink purse was processed. Inside the lining, the flash drive. On it, 38 folders, bank statements, email threads, personal journals, and surveillance video. Helen had been documenting Emily for weeks. Motiva, opportunity, premeditation. The case was sealed. That night, Matthew sat alone in her office, staring at the whiteboard covered in names and strings. Emily, Jason, Helen. 3 lives. One too many. She picked up a marker and drew a red X through the photo of Emily Whitmore. Then one through Jason Miller. Only Helen remained. A woman who died trying to protect her son, who had seen through the perfect smile and lived just long enough to catch it on camera. And in doing so, gave law enforcement what so many victims never get, a voice. The room was cold. Sterile. The kind of cold that wasn't about temperature, it was institutional. Designed to make people uncomfortable enough to talk. Emily Whitmore sat at the metal table, hands cuffed loosely in front of her. No makeup, no pearls, no sundress. Just a gray county-issued sweatshirt and the quiet hum of fluorescent lights. Sheriff Dana Matthews entered without a word, followed by Ruiz, who set down a thick manila folder and a laptop. Emily looked up with tired eyes. So, what now? You going to play me the video? The part where I kiss Jason? Or maybe the one where I gag a woman and stuff her into a barge? No, Matthew said simply. We're past theatrics. She sat down, flipped open the folder. Dozens of printed stills. Screenshots of emails, surveillance footage, banking logs, timestamps from the night Helen died. You were careful, Matthew said. Very. You erased Helen's text from her phone, deleted the GPS history, hid the flash drive. Emily smirked. Not careful enough, apparently. Apparently, Ruiz muttered, dry. Matthews pushed a photo forward. Helen caught mid-step outside the study, holding her phone, recording. Her eyes locked on the lens, her mouth slightly open. This was 2 nights before her death, Matthews said. She knew. And you knew she knew. Emily stared at the image for a long moment, then leaned back. She cornered me in the greenhouse, she said quietly. Said she'd show Alex everything. Said I wasn't worthy of the Whitmore name. Said I was just a pretty con job with a college degree and a guilty conscience. You recorded over the security footage that night, Matthews said, but you forgot the cloud sync on her laptop. Emily gave a small, humorless laugh. Isn't that something? Ruiz pulled up the drive video. Not the sex tape. Not the argument. The audio file labeled Greenhouse. 7:14 p.m. M4A. They let it play. Helen's voice was calm, controlled. If you walk out that door, Emily, I go to my attorney. You're done. And if you drag my son into this mess, I'll bury you both with every cent I have. Then, Emily's voice, low and shaken. You don't own him. You don't get to play God. A sharp breath. Something crashes. Then silence. Back in the room, Emily was pale. She didn't die that night, Matthew said. You gave her one last chance to stay silent. Emily nodded faintly. She didn't take it. Matthews leaned forward. Tell me what happened. All of it. The words came slowly. She called me the next morning, asked to meet at the river lot. Said she decided to give me a choice, leave quietly or face public disgrace. Emily looked at her wrists, the cuffs. She wanted me gone before Alex ever knew what hit him. But I couldn't walk away. Not after everything I'd done. So you lured her to the barge, Matthews said. I didn't plan to kill her, Emily said, almost pleading. I just wanted to scare her. Jason was supposed to help me intimidate her, make her think we had dirt on her too. But when she pushed back, she exhaled. She called me a parasite. She told Jason he was a pawn. That's when it snapped. I grabbed the scarf. She fought back, but I'd already made up my mind. You strangled her, Ruiz said, voice flat. Emily closed her eyes. I held until she stopped moving. Then I froze. Jason started yelling. We panicked. Buried her in the hold. Thought no one would find her there. Thought the current would take the barge out to the Gulf. You knew tides better than that, Matthews said. You grew up in Corpus. Emily laughed again. Doesn't matter now, does it? There was a long silence. Then Matthews asked, why the performance? The tears? The casseroles? Why keep pretending? End of lie. Emily looked up sharply, eyes suddenly alive. Because I had to. I married into power. Do you understand what that means? Expectations. Appearances. Helen didn't just hate me, she designed a version of me that would fail. I tried to be what they wanted. Ruiz shook his head. You killed the only person protecting Alex? No, Emily snapped. I killed the one person controlling him. Matthews didn't flinch. You killed his mother. That's not control. That's destruction. At the end of the session, Emily signed the confession. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She simply pushed the pen away and said, I loved him. You know, I really did. No, Matthews replied as she stood. You loved yourself more. Outside, Ruiz leaned against the hallway wall. Think she's telling the full truth? No, Matthews said, but she told enough. What about Alex? He'll have to bury his mother and his marriage in the same month. Ruiz sighed. Hell of a wake-up call. Matthews looked back at the door. He married a ghost in a sundress, and now the mask is off. They walked down the hallway, lights flickering above. Behind them, in room 3, Emily sat alone at the table, staring at her reflection in the two-way mirror. The face that once belonged to a fairy tale bride now looked like what it had always been, an illusion, blood-stained and broken. The courtroom was packed. Journalists lined the rear benches. Sketch artists hunched over pads, and courtroom bloggers live-tweeted every blink from the defense table. Harris County hadn't seen a trial this public since the Ashcroft kidnapping in 2011. But this was different. This wasn't just crime, it was betrayal in pearls. Emily Carter Whitmore, former golden daughter-in-law of the Whitmore Empire, sat calm, composed, and frighteningly beautiful in her orange prison jumpsuit. Her hair was tied back neatly. No tears. No trembling. Just silence. Alex Whitmore sat 2 rows behind the prosecution bench, flanked by friends and distant relatives. He hadn't spoken publicly since his wife's arrest. His face was thinner now, his eyes sunken but focused, staring straight ahead like he was bracing for impact. The prosecution called it first-degree premeditated homicide with intent to conceal and deceive. The defense painted Emily as a manipulated, emotionally abused young woman pushed to the edge by a dominating matriarch and an addict lover. Neither narrative told the full truth. But the jury didn't need the whole truth. They had the evidence, and Emily's own confession sealed it. The verdict came quickly, less than 4 hours of deliberation. As the jury filed back in, the judge asked, has the jury reached a unanimous decision? The foreperson, a retired school teacher, stood. We have, Your Honor. In the charge of first-degree murder of Helen Ruth Whitmore, how do you find the defendant? Guilty. The word dropped into the courtroom like a rock into water, silent, then rippling. Emily blinked once, then looked down. Alex closed his eyes. Sentencing came a week later. Emily chose not to speak. Her attorney read a brief statement on her behalf, a hollow apology wrapped in legal phrasing. Miss Whitmore regrets her actions and the pain they've caused the community and the family. No one believed it. The judge didn't flinch. This court recognizes the calculated nature of your crime, the deception involved, and your lack of remorse. You use love as camouflage, marriage as leverage, and family as a stage. He paused, then added, you are hereby sentenced to death by lethal injection under Texas law. No reaction, not even a flinch. The press dubbed her the devil in a sundress. The tabloids loved it. So did the internet. But Matthews, watching from the back of the room, didn't feel victory, only finality. Jason Miller had pled guilty earlier. In exchange for full cooperation and testimony, he avoided the needle just barely. The judge gave him life without parole. No second chances. He'll die behind bars, Ruiz said, and she'll beat him there. Matthews nodded. She always liked to win. 3 months later, the Whitmore estate was quietly put on the market. The pharmacy chain changed hands, rebranded under a private equity firm. Alex moved out of state. Word was he changed his name. No one blamed him. Helen's grave, however, became a place of quiet pilgrimage, mothers, sons, even strangers. People who'd watched the trial and needed to believe that evil wasn't always a shadow in an alley. Sometimes it wore lipstick. Sometimes it baked you cookies. And sometimes it said, I do. At the precinct, Ruiz asked Matthews over coffee, "You think Emily ever really loved him?" Matthews stirred her cup, staring at the steam. "I think she loved what he gave her: status, shelter, a way in. And the rest?" She shook her head. "She never loved Helen. And that's what made her dangerous. You can argue with someone who hates you, but someone who resents you, they smile while they sharpen the knife." The case file was closed, the board taken down, photos boxed. But one thing stayed on Matthews's desk. Helen's handwritten note from the planner, scrawled in fading ink. "Don't forget flash drive. Trust is earned, not inherited." It wasn't just a warning. It was a legacy, and one Matthews wouldn't forget. Because beneath the sundress, beneath the charm and the curated grace, had always been something else: a cold heart and a sharpened will. The kind you don't see coming until it's far, far too late. Trust is not about appearances. It is earned through consistency, integrity, and truth. The story of Emily Carter Whitmore reminds us that evil doesn't always come wearing a mask. It often wears a smile. She wasn't a monster in the shadows. She was a daughter-in-law, a wife, a so-called angel in a sundress. Her weapon wasn't rage, it was charm, deception. The calculated use of trust as a tool. We learn that even the most pristine facades can hide the darkest intentions, and that love, when distorted by ambition and resentment, can turn into something lethal. The lesson is clear: never mistake politeness for goodness. Never confuse silence for safety. And never forget that true character is revealed not in grand gestures, but in small, unnoticed choices, especially when no one is watching. In a world obsessed with appearances, pay attention to patterns. Trust slowly, observe deeply. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time.